Yes.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna play the song. Halito, everybody, we are live. What's up? We got our beloved brother Mongo Kongo with us today. And we just, we got a little kitchen table talk. This is long overdue. It's been a very long time since I got to speak to him. Our relationship started off really crazy and then it got really good in the interim of that. So we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk. Our brother is of Congo descent. He lives in Europe in the United Kingdom. And we got some interesting things to talk about and how our perspectives met. And it was greatly attached to us both having love for our people and respect for one another's differences and knowing that there's something that we're missing. So instead of us arguing, there's a point that we need to get to where we're telling each other's truth and seeing what it is that we can do on both ends. And I absolutely adore this guy. Look how handsome he is. This is our favorite Congo brother. I also got somebody else I'd love for you to meet. He's totally hilarious. He's got nothing but jokes. He's a good kid. He knows a lot about his people too. Get him on the show. This has been about 5 years. Mongo Kongo and I have known each other. It started off with the middle of the American Indians War, where Aborigines War versus the Pan-Africans, and then the continental Africans, and then the Native Americans, and it was just one big clusterfuck of everybody just, every man for themselves trying to support their people and bring their people's truth forward. So this is a long time coming. My beloved audience, I want to introduce to you Brother Mongo Kongo. He's a dope cat, very smart. And he's got a lot to talk about too. How you doing,
Yeah,
beloved?
peace. Yeah, not too bad. And as I said, it's great. I'm happy to be on your show, and it's good that you also mention Pan African and Continental African, because that's two different things.
Yeah.
As you noticed during the course of the time in those groups when we was obviously sharing ideas and the debates and the battles, um, I started to realize the Pan African thing was a completely separate thing. It wasn't something that I was actually fighting for. And I noticed when I started to tell the Pan Africans, look, I don't know what you lot have got going over there, got going on over there, but I am not part of that. I'm not a Pan African. I think that's when I started to see things better. And luckily, if I didn't meet people like you, I probably wouldn't have had that growth, because obviously you have more life experience than me as well, and you obviously have a lot of experience with understanding grandma. You are the what's the word, the founder of the term. So looking at the way things are going and what you've been doing for your people has helped me see things better, and it's also helped me to apply some of your points to what I'm trying to deal with as well, and I only can admire that.
That means so much coming from you. Now, I got to tell everybody in the middle of all these battles, there's one thing that made me greatly respect him. And this is the fact that when it got down to the Native Americans calling us different names, making racial epithets, he was the first brother to be like, hold on, I don't agree with everything that they're talking about, but that doesn't mean that there's a lie. But what you're not going to do is talk about another sister that looks like she could be my family in that manner. So he was very protective and very respectful to what it is, and as far as not attaching himself to the people that purported to end up hating us or acting as if they did, when there was really no hate involved. It was a lot going on at the time. We were taking some really serious shots at each other, putting pictures up, making memes, and we were just slapping each other around, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, the common ground was that we all had love for our grandmas. Well, I did, and so did Mongo Kongo, and that is all we needed to know about each other in order to be able to have decent conversations where we can talk, because the one thing in common that we had is that we hate oppression and we want better for our people. That's it, and that's all. So to hear that even across the Atlantic, there's this brother that has his love for his people the same as I do for mine, and he's used some of that, to have some introspect on how he can work with his people and do the same. right? And that's what we're all supposed to be doing. We do not have to be fighting with each other and carrying on. And there's things, and that's why we need to be allies instead of enemies. When in fact, he doesn't feel the same way that, you know, what we see on Twitter, how a lot of Africans portray us as Americans. A lot of that also comes from propaganda too. So they have been taught a lot of things about us negatively, and then they've seen negative things come from out of us. We do not stick together. Some of those things are true to an extent, even though it may sound as though we don't like it, right? But it's coming from a place that also has changed our perception of a lot of things as well, even though it may not be the case. So in all understanding, that's something that we have been able, well, he and I have been able to figure out. And there's a few others too that know this, and we have come to this understanding where we can exchange information and things that will help one another to strengthen whatever it is that we need to do that's positive towards changing the conditions for our people. That's really all that we wanted to do.
Yeah, well said. And the what made me start to, you know, have a broader perspective of things. As you already know, I got into the DNA thing very early. Yes. But interestingly and luckily for me, I'm not West African, so the opportunity I had is that I wasn't associated with really West African things, because a lot of the time the Pan-Africans, when they talk about African unity, really what they're practicing is unity in Ghana and Nigeria and Gambia and anything that the oppressors above them say they have to do. That's all they are doing. So with me, what I ended up being able to see is that in order for them to write your story about your grandma and your genetic makeup, they're going to have to lie about ours, about not just ours, other people. When I say other people, I'm speaking about maybe people in land resource areas, or people with history that interferes with the oppressor's history. Right. And it could be anything. It's not solely limited to resources. It's a range of other things. It's also like, I don't know, acts of what's the word, war crimes even. Could be anything. Could be anything. So it's very important that they decide how much percentage you're going to be American, how much percentage you're going to be African, or how much percentage you're going to be European, etc. So in that process, they're obviously going to have to, you know, put in a few little bits of truth, and then, you know, capitalize on the lie, or make the lie the main focus. So what I began to discover is that one of the best examples I can give, I can remember when I took an ancestry test, it came out as 100% Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu people. I was thinking, oh yeah, you know, I was doing all the cartwheels, and I think it was you and your sister online. You was actually the first to basically, I don't know what you both of you said, but you said something that really made a lot of sense to me. And what I noticed is that Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu people, that's not actually telling me where I'm from. But a lot of people didn't catch that. When I explained that to the Pan-Africans, they try to, you know, sideline me as if, like, you know, what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. But I was thinking, no, it's not actually telling me where I'm from. Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu people, that can mean anyone.
That's right.
So that is like, for example, that is like a European getting sampled in America, a Moor getting sampled in America, and people from your ethnic group getting sampled in America and calling it American DNA. And then I am then using that title, that category, to describe your ethnicity. When really, like you said in one of your other videos, you made a very good point. They're not digging up Queen Nzinga. They're not digging up all these historical figures to basically link to DNA. Right. And the best thing to do is, if you have DNA extracted from your very ancestors, and the stories attached to your ancestors should be attached to that DNA as well, and that will be reflective of you. That is the best thing we can do, because what we are doing at the moment is, or the Pan-Africans, or particular Pan-Africans, because there's different types of Pan-Africans, they are basically authorizing what the oppressor is saying about our stories. We're not in the laboratories with them to say, nope, this is wrong, say this, nope, this is wrong, say that. Or we're not in the laboratories with them. We're just agreeing with them because scientists said.
That's right. That's right.
So
And we don't challenge it, even with our common sense. And the best way to challenge that is the science that was given to us by all of our creators, whatever it is that you call them, right? I call them parents and grandparents because that is how we got here. That happens to be the same creation story for everybody. We were in our mother's stomach for a period of time. Something magical happened with our mother and father, and here we are, right? And that has been repeated, and this is where we are with it now. So who can take away and who can interrupt that science? They can't. And we have been letting them dictate to us what it is that our stories are. So now here you have the Pan-Africans trying to use DNA against us to shame us out of what we're saying that we know about our history. And they're giving us history that belongs to other people. They're including us in other people's culture, which this brother right here, we don't have anything to do with his culture. That's stealing from him. As they call us culture vultures and say that we're stealing from Native Americans, Native Americans have no history in the 13 colonies as our families were documented. And here it is, you're giving us Congo history, Nigerian history, Gambian history, and it doesn't belong to us. And you're shorting the people that are actually there. Now, the people that are there that are also being tested, how come they are having a hard time the same way as we, finding a bloodline relative with a name attached to it? How are we establishing ancestry if we can't figure out who? We can't make any claims against anybody in the world for doing anything against us. We're just saying, hey, they're from that away.
excellent point. That is a brilliant point. Because you just reminded me, I done a video on this not long ago. For instance, one thing is I've started to also identify, there's this idea that a lot of so-called Americans, so-called Black Americans, are so-called mixed with Europeans. That is not. I don't think it's. I think that's been exaggerated to an extent. And the reason why I say that is because there's this thing on DNA where they can detect your Neanderthal variants, and basically the maximum they was able to reach was 4% Neanderthal. So across the whole globe, the maximum Neanderthal variant you can reach or Neanderthal DNA you can reach is 4%, and it's only Europeans that was reaching that. And I'm not going to say the person's name, but I was speaking to a few Pan-Africans, and I was telling them when they were showing their results, they were saying, "Oh, I've got this much Neanderthal variants." I was thinking something's not right. And I was saying, you're not as European as you are based. When I say European, I'm talking about a so-called white European.
Yeah.
I think that's been conflated, to be honest. And I used to basically always say, you can't have that much Neanderthal variance. It's impossible. It's impossible to have that much Neanderthal variance. And then shortly after that, I think in June, what they done is they said that it's impossible. The scientists said that it's impossible to have 4% Neanderthal variance. Everybody across the whole globe, the maximum Neanderthal variance they have is 2%. So you're telling me for a good
2% at maximum?
10 years, yeah, 2% maximum. But I don't even believe that anyway. But so you're basically telling me for 10 years, everybody has been approving of their European DNA with the Neanderthal variants attached to it. And then now all of a sudden, because the scientists said that, oh no, it's not 4% anymore, it's 2% that the maximum a European Caucasian can reach. Now all of a sudden we're just going to ignore that. What does that say about other things about the ethnicity estimate? Because the only way you're getting those Neanderthal variants is from your European markers. So what they are obviously doing is they're applying it to everyone, and they want to promote the out of Africa theory. So if everybody's got, a few Neanderthal variants, then they can say, here, we're all one people. And then that's where people pretending to be used in your American Indian community, and people pretending to be my people pretending to be whoever around the globe, they can attach to the hypothesis that we're all one people because we all have Neanderthal variants, we all have a little bit of this DNA, a little bit of that DNA. Or another example, what they do is for Caucasians, people that are 100% Caucasian, what they sometimes do is they deliberately slip in 1% so-called Black DNA or 1% sub-Saharan African DNA, so that they can basically keep this idea that we all come from the same source when we don't. If we all promote and the Pan-Africans are heavy with this. If we all promote the idea, we are all the same people, because as you know very well, everyone on Africa is not the same people. And if we keep promoting the idea that, you know, we're all the same people, then these DNA companies get an easier way through in trying to promote these theories to us. So it's a very good point that you made earlier. That's what it just reminded me of.
Thank you for sharing that. And these are interesting points, and I do remember a year or so ago, maybe even longer, you bringing that up, and they kind of tried to throw tomatoes. You know what I'm saying? They wanted you to be very, very quiet, and they kind of turned on you. So now this is what exposed the Pan-Africanism as being a fluke and being inflated just to, and this also goes attached to the oppressor sandwich. They are all the same. They're no different than any white people that we can yell at, blame, or be mad at. They are the same people, if you ask me, in spirit, because they are still interfering with our heritage, culture, and it becomes genocidal and it becomes ethnocidal on a global level. So we're just focused on us. He's just focused on him and his people. But this is something that's going on globally under everybody's noses. As they tell us, it's for entertainment purposes only. Right? But what do we need? We don't have time for entertainment, right? You see, they got even the entertainers is sitting down, socially distancing, and there's no concerts, there's no shows going on, no production or film or anything, and everybody's watching us like we're in a fishbowl, right? They shut down all of these things, and in this interim, we're supposed to be interacting in a manner that when we come back to what we say was a little bit semi-normal in society, we come back with an allegiance and alliance to fixing some of the conditions. We should go right back to what it was that we started out to do. And that was to fix and change some of the conditions for our people, because we're not happy with the way things are going. We're not happy with being oppressed. And in fact, no one in the world should be oppressed. And this is something that affects everybody. So it makes it's a double-edged sword, that it makes it look like it's going to do something for you, but really it's hurting us all, because they're trying to make everybody a monolithic people, and that's just absolutely not true.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, was you going to say something? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, that's okay.
Okay, yeah. And to build on your point, so in regards to them being the oppressors, what I've also learned is that in promoting this idea that the out of Africa theory will all come from the same strain, etc., etc. I've basically learnt some parts of Congolese history which some Pan-Africans wouldn't want to come out. So they will come to your communities where yous are. What I see it as is, even though I might not agree with everything, I think that is great that you are self-identifying and attaching yourselves to America, and you have every right to, and there's nothing at all wrong with that. And I don't think people should be interfering with that. I think that it's wrong, and it's your expression. You know, if people are really, you're talking about spirituality earlier, or making references to, what we call our Most High, whatever. If people can, see your expression, they'll be able to see that it's coming from a good place. But some people don't have soul, so they're not going to be able to see that. And adding to that, what I started to realize is the Pan-Africans, they'll say stuff like, we're all one people. When I told them, no, we're not one people, they call me a tribalist. Fine, I'm a tribalist. And then when you get into discussions about the Berlin Conference, which was called the Congo Conference, actually, it wasn't actually called the Berlin Conference. It wasn't just the Europeans that went in there to start to chop up people on that. These are the part that they miss out. It was, they came in with groups from Nigeria, they came in with groups from Sierra Leone, they came in with groups from, these are modern day countries I'm speaking about. So they came in with groups from Gold Coast regions, Bight of Biafra regions, Bight of Benin. So these are like Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, we see today. I said Sierra Leone, Zanzibar, Tanzania. Yeah. So, those black soldiers that was in Congo, there wasn't Congolese people. So they came in with black people to basically take over the land. That's another part. And I can show you this. Like,
what happened with Seiko? Is that the same thing that happened with Seiko?
Which Seiko? Seco?
This was in the 90s. There was some sort of conflict in the 90s. Does that have anything to do with the
With Patrick Lumumba you're talking about, or are you speaking about with Patrick?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that will come after, because they like to. I'm gonna give you a information on that, because it's gonna be relative to yourselves, because a few Pan-Africanists there was anyway. I'm gonna get onto that part, but that's the part that they miss out. So the reason I'm telling you this is beneficial for your audience to understand as well. In Africa, everyone's not the same people. So the part in history that they've missed out is that all these groups, they've gone in with the Europeans to basically invade Congo, and part of that invasion was obviously impregnating Congolese women, and also basically protecting the British Queen's sovereignty. In other words, this group was basically the West African Frontier Force and the King's African Rifles, but they was basically incorporated into the Force Publique, which is said to be the Belgian army, but it wasn't entirely the Belgian army. It was the Belgians involved. It was the Norwegians, the Switzerland, British, and different other European nations. So if sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen it, sometimes there's photos of Congo in the early 90s or in the late 1800s with people with those hats, those KFC bucket hats. You know what I'm talking about? That is the actual uniform of the West African Frontier Force, which was worn by the people from the so-called Gold Coast regions, Biafra regions, modern day Nigeria, Ghana, those sort of places, etc. And their jobs in there was to basically do what they had to do. And these people, I believe, also played a pivotal role in getting incorporated into, certain political positions and participating in what I call ethnic distortion, which is something that you should be interested in as well. You are aware of that. I'm describing it something different. So what they will do is they will do very clever things. They would call the people houses, but they are not all houses. For example, there will be people from Yoruba in there, all different categories. I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want any Nigerian that's listening, or if a Nigerian hears this, think that I've got a problem with every single West African. That's not the case, but I'm just telling the truth. We're not all one people, and certain people that are waving the Pan-African flag, they don't want us to talk about certain things. And going further into that, there was even other things in that same period. There was a few hundred people from like the Caribbean, from places like Barbados, and some people from like places like Martinique and St. Lucia. There was also taken into Congo as well to basically be enslaved, literally. But what it is it was presented to them as, going to work in Congo, and they actually was involved in the revolts in Congo because there was specific groups in Congo that was basically revolting against the oppressors, and some of these Caribbeans were involved. And they was involved on the basis that on the route to Congo in the 1800s, in the late 1800s period, some of the army men that came from Ghana, it was from the Accra region, so the ship must have stopped off in Ghana to pick up some of the army men, and they saw all these Caribbeans on the ship, and they said to the Caribbeans, when you lot arrive in Congo, you are going to be enslaved. And basically they was fighting for their lives on that ship, fighting against the controllers of that ship to basically try and turn the ship around to go back to the Caribbean, but they lost the fight, and eventually they got basically sent to the railways and other places to basically work. These are like little stories. So they said that a lot of these hundreds of these Caribbeans died in Congo. However, we don't know the full story. And the reason I'm addressing this as well is to link it with the DNA as well. So if we've got different groups in Congo, who are the people in Congo being sampled today?
Right.
You understand where I'm going with this? So it's the same thing, because I said this before to someone in the Pan-African community. I said a lot of these these conflation of Nigerian results, a lot of it's to do with over-representation on purpose and to distort the ethnicities of other people. So, for example, in your community, you may have a unique genetic code in your DNA or genetic inheritance, but that will be distorted by conflating, I don't know, Nigerian ancestry, for example. And with that being said, if you've got, you know, a big machine and loads of Pan-Africans authorizing this lie, then, you know, it makes the DNA company feel more comfortable by saying, oh yes, this is a fact, because people that look like you are approving of it when they don't represent you. Hence why I think it's really great what you are doing. I just wanted to add, I'm going to build on that, but I wanted just to add that to what you was
Thank you.
saying.
Thank you for keeping it so truthful. That's true. Thank you so much for doing that, for just being open and honest about what it is, you know, and that's the human compassion, right, that he has. And again, he's made it very clear that we didn't always agree with everything that we said, but to be able to sit back and see how this affects people globally, it gives him a better understanding of how we feel and how he knows that we've been neglected, and how this also trickles down into his heritage and his ancestry, and how that is now being distorted. This is something they had practiced with us, but this is something that they're doing now in more recent times. So I think this is very interesting. I do appreciate you for keeping it real. I definitely do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, but yeah, no, I really do appreciate it, because it's really good that you're mentioning that. I wanted to add this as well. So what Pan Africans do is, I get, it's actually offensive when they say this to me. They say, "Oh, you know, why are you being divisive? Why are you being like a tribalist?" I say, and I'm not being a tribalist. What tribalists basically, being tribal is basically showing loyalty to your grandma. So even if you look up the definition of what is being tribal is basically showing loyalty to your own genetics. What they deliberately do is they confuse. I'll give, for example, with your community, they confuse your loyalty to your own community and heritage in America. They confuse it as they basically confuse your reaction to oppression and categorize it as tribalism, when tribalism is simply showing loyalty to your own DNA, your own grandparents, and and everybody that came before you. If you basically destabilize, if me and you go to the desert and we remove camels from people that thrive, and remove camels from a community of people that thrive off camels, we're going to destabilize them, aren't they? Because their way of life is living with the camels. So they're going to react to that. And then it's like when they react to that, we call their reaction tribalism. That's all that's happening.
That's what's happening.
That's all that's happening. That's happening with views. That's all that's happening. So I really like understand the game. So what the Pan-Africans like to do is, the particular type of Pan-Africans, the one that know the game and know what they're doing, they will say, oh, Patrice Lumumba was a Pan-African, and I'm saying to them, no, he was basically obviously influenced, yes, but what I find funny is, I'm not going to name names, but you'll be able to get the picture because you're very intelligent, Phoenix. But when Patrice Lumumba entered the AA, I think the AAPC or something like that, is basically like a congregation for so-called African presidents and leaders. So basically all get together and find a way to allegedly combat oppression and colonialism. The leaders of that basically was all contributing, and this is where Barack Obama's father came from as well. So I'm just giving you a bit of an idea on how these institutions get created for people that don't represent you to end up in your communities, acting like they're speaking for your experience. Because I know, for example, Barack Obama don't represent your community. He doesn't represent the so-called Black American experience or anything like that. But a Pan-African, or some Pan-Africans and some people that don't know any better, they would like to present the idea that Barack Obama was a black president. He wasn't even black. He was literally mixed race. But to cut a long story short, in the AAAPC, whatever happened after that, when Patrice Lumumba entered that, Patrice Lumumba, he was from my ethnic group, so I know what I'm basically talking about, and I know what some of the people are like. He was basically what he was fighting for. We was already dealing with that. So in his ethnic group, okay, we already knew what oppression was, but from a standpoint of slavery, being enslaved on your own land. So that wasn't an experience that was generic to every person in that room in the AAAPC in Africa in the 1950s. Cut a long story short, whatever he done in the 1950s ended up basically being arrested, and this was in 1958, and he was arrested and he was in prison in 1959, and the oppressors arrested him. The same Pan-Africans that people like to promote was in 1960, the year after, basically drinking with the oppressors in what I call it was like a Commonwealth meeting. So it's like basically I do something with someone and the oppressors arrest me, and then my co-D that was with me, dealing with whatever crime we've done or whatever we've done, he's basically then, in a meeting drinking with the oppressors that arrest me. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not going to say the name of the person, but I'm just saying this person is lifted up as a Pan-Africanist. And in addition to that, some of these people in the AAAPC, they didn't marry women that was from their ethnic group. They married women that looked pale, that was maybe from Europe or North Africa, stuff like that. Right. So the representation themselves, they didn't look like so-called black African women. They looked like other women. So this makes me question the institution. It was like, what's going on? The leaders of the AAPC, which was promoting Pan-Africanism as well, some of them were parting with the oppressors as well after Patrice Lumumba's death. So Patrice Lumumba was killed in 1961, and I think it was 1964, the same oppressors in the same organization that Patrice Lumumba was in to fight oppression, they're drinking with the oppressors. So when I present these examples of Pan-Africans, they don't like to speak about that because it basically damages their ideology. And also, they don't want to identify with the fact that everybody's not the same, and they will have to they don't want to understand that everybody has unique histories attached to different land masses. And when you basically present the idea that everybody is the same, you get situations where you have people that are not Congolese basically presenting themselves as Congolese and speaking for me and speaking for my experience when they are not related to me, or neither do they speak for my people. And the same thing applies to your people as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And that's pretty much how it happens. I think I know exactly who it is you're speaking of, and you can just give it a nod. Are you talking about Dr. John Henrik Clarke?
No, I'm not speaking about John Henrik Clarke. I'm speaking about the president of Ghana, basically.
Okay.
And that is not to attack all, because some Pan-Africans, what I'm saying for them is too deep for some of them. So I'm not gonna just drop names, but I'll just say names to be clear. I'm speaking about Kwame Nkrumah, who was a Pan-African, okay, but he wasn't for Congolese people or our people. In fact, it could have been his people alone that went into Congo to invade with the Europeans. Right. In fact, as you mentioned, John Henrik Clarke, he probably met John Henrik Clarke in, I don't know what the university it starts with, because he went to a university in the 1930s. I think it was, it started with an L. I can't remember what university it was, but John.
I don't know why I think it was Lehman.
Yeah, it starts with an L. I can't remember, but John Henrik Clarke was there, and a lot of people that were in Prince Hall Masonry was there. And this isn't anything against Mace. I want to make a very clear point. The experience of Masonry in America is not the same. It's not the same as in continental Africa. So I don't spare any continental Africans that's in masonry. And what I'm basically saying is, with the American experience with masonry, that shouldn't be anything to do with continental Africans, is what I'm saying. And obviously, Kwame Nkrumah was obviously involved with American affairs. That's the best way I'll put it.
Yes.
So
yes.
and obviously with what he was involved in makes it questionable, in who he was, because even the people that he used to appoint for his
you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry, can you hear me better now? Sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Your signal went out a little bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think
there's
I can hear you perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, basically, in Kwame Nkrumah, his historical background and his purpose was questionable, especially leading up to the events of Patrice Lumumba's death. Even there was another guy called I can't remember his name, Tom Boyer or something like that. Tom Boyer, he was basically the person that created, he was involved in the institution basically that Patrice Lumumba was involved in. And Tom Boyer was the one that basically created the system that sends people from Kenya, some people that are promoted to look like you, to basically study in America, which is where Barack Obama's father also was involved in, and obviously studied in America. So he got through like that as well. So what am I saying? All I'm basically saying is these same Pan-African institutions and these concepts, what history has shown for me, what comes out of it is they create people that to basically speak for people like me and people like you and other people around the world, and to basically try to represent us, our story and our history. And potentially they're doing it again, and they're probably doing it with DNA, because DNA's the next new thing, is to basically make inferences to haplogroup assignments, because the scientists, they was there 1 million years ago, but we wasn't. Because they was there 1 million years ago, they know who's who apparently. So
so like also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's like the new best thing. So DNA is a thing that I'm going to be, watching heavily, seeing how it goes as well, so that I can basically teach and help my people and help other people as well to see obviously where they are going with this. But yeah, so the Pan-African thing and the DNA thing is interlinked, and it's probably more interlinked than we probably think it is.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I'm so glad the people in the chat are very excited. I know they may have some questions. Are you okay with answering a few questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't even see the chat because I'm on the stream thing. But yeah, so I'll answer any questions. Okay. Any questions? No. And if you can let them know, basically, it's a meal. In case somebody's ever spoken to me and not seen my space, you can let them know as well. It's basically a meal. And it evolved the meal.
This is email. This is our brother Email guessing from Final Battle. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, he's definitely willing to answer. And we need to have these conversations. I'm so excited about this, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying this conversation as well. Thank you so much, Quentin, Jerry. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this conversation. I'm pretty sure there's some people that aren't enjoying this conversation because there's a lot of tension, and it's telling truth all the way from one side of the Atlantic to the other. So, and these people are not for truth. They're actually against it. And here it is throughout a war and all of this tumultuous back and forth that we've been doing over the better part of 5 years. Here it is that you have people on both sides of the continent that agree that the people in the middle are in our way on both sides. They're in the way. They're in the way of our success. They're in the way of us eliminating oppression. They're in the way of us helping our people out of poverty. And this is also how we get to the bottom of who it is that we need to blame, because there's this disproportionate amount of people that are taking over our countries pretending to be us. right? And they're doing and they're just acting like the usual suspect is just all these, these so-called white people, but it's really a lot of skin folk that are in between causing a whole heap of confusion. And if everybody stops and just checks out grandma, there can't be any confusion. And that's why I say that No Grandma Killers is something for everybody in the world that is oppressed. It's not just for us. It's not just what we are doing. This is for an end to global oppression, period. I'm sure the same thing's happening in China. I'm sure it's happening all over the place. But this is something that we noticed amongst our people, that we have something that we can do about it right now. So we do have legendary Top Cats. We got the beloved Top Cats. He's got a question. Halito, beloved, how are you?
Peace, peace. Peace to the Congo. Peace to you, Moon. Peace to everybody in the
Peace,
chat.
peace, peace,
Thank
peace.
you.
Now y'all cooking. The whole Pan-African concept. It's an ideology though. It was something that they built to take away from here, to wash away the history here. So
Yes.
a lot of the history here, they try to paint it. They try to paint it African. Like the first Back to Africa movement was through Paul Cuffey, which was a Shinnecock Indian, but they tell you in history that his father was an African because of his name. But when we go to the burial site, he actually Shinnecock, and his mama was Wampanoag, his wife was Pequot. And so when we go through this, it's an Indian story. Even when we lead up to the like the brother just said something powerful. He said they're trying to use the DNA for the Pan-African thought. Now the Pan-African thought, that's absolutely true, and the U.S. government had a lot to do with it. In 1991, they were building a federal building and ran across the Indian burial ground, and they had Howard University take the case to put it in the where you get the ABG, African Burial Ground. Well, at Howard University, the lead geneticist there was a guy named Kittles, Rick Kittles. That's where Kittles get the African DNA test from. He was a part of this. Michael Blakey was also over it. He came out and exposed it. Kittles took the data from that and started the African
Biology, the ancestry.
Yeah,
DNA.
so they've been doing this. Even when the father of Pan-African, Edward Blyden, he was through missionary work. He was a part. This was when they were doing the colonization movement and all of this. He tried to come here through. He went to Venezuela from Virgin Islands. He went to Venezuela and studied under Knox, who was a reverend. His Knox wife got accepted in the Ruckers. They denied Blyden. And so they had a program running in Liberia at that time. He went over to the program in Liberia. They needed people from the West who understood their concept of Christianity missionary to carry this message, what became the Pan-African message, this whole back to Africa or African nationality, African over everything. And that's when they started grouping everything into one. We come up to Carter G. Woodson. He was the first one to study the African paradigm, what they tell us. This is where we get our Black History Month and all of this. But this is where the education of the Pan-African, when they start grouping everything into one and generalizing it through Carter G. Woodson.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Legendary Top Cats. I want to also build on a good point you made. What I also discovered is a lot of the scientists, when they used to basically do their when they want to do their projects, what they will do is they will instead of going to the continent to basically sample continental Africans, quote unquote, they would basically use samples from so-called African Americans. What they will do is they would sample them for their studies to basically speak about Africa. And there was also a study where they showed that there was a flaw in the haplogroups. So what there was basically, the haplogroups, you've got L0, L1, L2, L0 apparently being the oldest and belonging to specific people. What this study basically showed is by studying the DNA of your people, they basically found that the ethnicity estimate is basically when they say your X percentage this or your X percentage that, was basically contradicting the actual haplogroup. So if somebody says, oh, I'm L1, oh, I'm L0, it was basically conflicting with the ethnicity estimate, because when you go to some parts of the continent, not all, but some parts of the continent, where probably the oppressors are, and if you sample an oppressor, their story or their ethnic category is usually in sync with their ethnicity estimate. And in addition to that, there was another study, I read it in, I think it was in Oxford University. I read a study that there's basically a violation in the biological, the clock evolution. What I'm basically saying is that when it gets to L0 to L1 to L2, there's basically a violation. There's basically something wrong with how they are basically saying L2, haplogroup L2 is involved into L3. The reason I'm addressing this to you and your audience is so that you can understand where the out of Africa theory is also flawed. So they are basically saying we all come from the same woman, etc., etc. But in order for them to maintain that, they have to basically create false haplogroup assignments and false studies. And in the process of them doing that, these scientists as well, that was basically doing a general study, they've realized that there becomes a breaking point where there's basically a violation in the evolution. And to build on this as well, what they used as well, used a chimpanzee all the way to a Koyan sand person, L0, all the way to modern day humans, or aka modern day Africans. And they basically said that there was a violation. So basically, however they are trying to prove that humans have evolved, there is a violation. So people that are basically saying I'm L this, I'm L that, I don't believe in the haplogroup science. What they are basically subscribing to is a theory. So they can create, if they want to, they can create a new haplogroup tomorrow. This haplogroup is called L11, and it came about 50,000 years ago. And these groups, and this haplogroup belongs to these groups. They can create any story they want. And who can challenge
it, right?
Yeah.
Because now dominated the field. And you know what? I can tell you, I understand what you're saying based off of the law, not the history, the way that you do in this instance. And the reason why I say that is because now it makes sense that they have these specific visas for Nigerians, Ghanaians to come here and study science against us. So when you're saying this is part of the visa that they have, where they get the $500, $1,000 starter kit, they get the bomb credit. They have treaties, active treaties right now that were recently created. But then there's this thing where for some reason, a lot of people are upset with their conduct across the world. And I'm not singling Nigerians out, because I know some Nigerians and I don't have any problem with them. But there's something very significant about the entire world saying, hey, we don't want them here. They're known for scamming. And I don't know if this has always been going on or if this is something that we're just now noticing. So when you say that they're the people that have the KFC bucket hats on, there's only one thing that I can think of, and this is
I know your guy with
attached to some hocus pocus where they create a picture and it's not exactly what it is, right? Some sort of magical deception kind of thing that they've been responsible for. Everything from antiquity and the old cartoons and everything, it depicts these people. So now that you say this, and this happened in the 90s, right? This last conflict.
Yeah, early, yeah. The late. So from the 1880 onwards to the early 90s. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it was them. So
you have active slavery involved in being engaged in Libya, where primarily the victims are Cameroonian people that are getting destroyed and taken into these places, or feeling so compelled that they are so poor that they're going to offer themselves up to jobs, just to support themselves, right? Which is, and this also gives us an understanding of what it was like. So when people say, when Kanye says slavery was a choice, he's not exactly lying when he says that. But if you listen to in the Americas, if you listen to after the emancipation, they talk about slavery being over like it was a curse. You think they would be happy and they're like, slavery came and they just turned us loose like cattle. They just turned us loose like dogs. They just let us loose like dogs. They kicked us off the plantation. They gave us 2 days to move and this, that, and the third. Dude, it sound like they gave you 2 days to get the fuck out and you've been dying for freedom all this time. Does that sound right? You can't wait to get away from someone. There's so many different things. So if that's happened here, this is something that they are using to dominate everybody in the world. And then they bring in foreigners that may or may not look like you to occupy your land and then overthrow you. And then they're in charge and then you're poor and they're rich and everybody's drinking fucking tea together. You know, and they just make off with the bag. And I'm just so hearing this, you connecting dots of a conversation that I was having with my twin sister that you weren't privy to, but this is something that I actually went to sleep reading as I was doing my research last night, and I was discussing this with her before I went to bed. So for you to connect these dots, and I'm just sitting here like time traveling with you, like literally astro traveling through the realm with you. The cupcake hats, the KFC bucket hats, the 1990s, and I'm picturing all of this and tying this into what it is that I see. So now you have these visas, and they're telling people to come here and be scientists to come and manipulate these particular studies that we're speaking about right now. That has everything to do with a different type of new world order where we all lose our identity, right?
Yep. Yeah, brilliant. And I want to also build on your point as well. In I think it was 18. It must have been in 1902. There was basically a Nigerian, or what we know today as modern day Nigeria. There was a man who was basically higher ranking in the force publique, and he was basically working with a man that basically commissioned to basically chop the hands off many Congolese people that was basically rebelling. And I want to support two of your points, actually. One of the points I want to support is that it's the retaliation, because the ethnic groups that I'm from, we did put our hands on oppressors to the point where some of my grandparents and some of the older generation, they don't like to speak about it because it's looked down upon. We are very rebellious, so we don't like to speak about what we've done to the invading Europeans.
Right.
But however, it shows that, you know, sometimes it gets to a point where you can object to certain things that are thrown at you. Obviously, some things that are oppressing you, you may not see them, hence why you're tolerating it, or you may not see the gravity of what you're trying to tolerate. However, there's some things that you don't have to tolerate and you can overcome it. And in addition to that as well, when you're speaking about Nigeria, the man that commissioned for Congolese people to have their hands chopped off, he was basically working with a higher ranking person that came from Nigeria into Congo. And he basically went on there was like these expeditions for the progress on what's happening in Congo and, you know, the colonization. So every periodically, what they'll do is they'll go to Belgium and they'll basically have a meeting. So in the outside world, we might have this picture that, you know, there's all these Caucasians sitting around the table, sitting around the office, you know, discussing, you know, how much money they've made from Congo. When in actual fact, there could be somebody that allegedly looks like me or you in that meeting as well. So I'm just building on.
I bring that up because they, you know, I don't want to say that the so-called white people can really pull this off without people that look like us. They couldn't do it. I just don't, you know, I don't have that much faith. They could not do it. They cannot do it without the skin folk that are in between. And they've created this, we are the same thing, in order for us to, you know, kind of let that die down in our minds, or perish the thought that could be a possibility of where some of our jabs and stuff are coming from. Well, damn, I never saw that coming. Of course you didn't, because they're right next to you. right? So, and these are some of the things, the conversations that we need to have. This is why I'm really excited about this conversation. We'll have Clara Mayo and I will be speaking soon to the people, and this is where we need to establish these points of, you know, we need to establish these points where we're discussing this amongst each other as a heads of state kind of thing, right? Because we care about what happens overall to our people, and we have to be each other's watchdog. And what a lot of what happens here in America is going. Tyrone, can you please move? Hi, beloved, can you please mute your thing? What happens here in America is setting a precedence for everybody else, because they're coming here to learn how to fuck everybody else up. And that's not fair too. Meanwhile, we can't learn to help ourselves, but other people can come here and get the best education, even if it's the same, but they thrive in a completely different way. They're never without work. We have people that have PhDs, bachelor's degrees, all sorts of associates and master's degrees, and they are unemployed right now. Unemployed now, and they were unemployed before COVID. And then when they do get a job, you don't want to pay them anything, and then they want to get booted out because they don't have the age, they don't look the part. It's always something. So they're doing this, and they're using, you know, our place as a place to build up people that are putting dirt into other places that we may not see or know about. So this also makes us like, well, if everybody hates America, what the hell are they coming here for? They're coming here so they can come and learn how to oppress other people. This is the same system that they did. And then they end up having to call in for reinforcements the same way the Liberians did, because once the United States pulled out, the Liberians had to spend a good chunk of the money that they had accumulated from the ACS, because they got money for leaving, immigrating America and coming to Liberia, Sierra Leone, and also Haiti. And they had to use that money to protect themselves against the people that was already there. Yeah. And then they had to go and hire people from which at that time the kingdom was of Congo, and they had to get the people from the Congo to protect them against the Rios and the other people, other ethnic groups that were in closer proximity. So yeah, there may be some DNA. There may be some connection. There's no one's disputing that. But how is it connected? By what? And when?
You reminded me of sorry for cutting you. Sorry, continue.
Go ahead.
Yeah, don't lose your trail of thought, because you just reminded me to build on what you're basically saying as well. There was a man named, he was an American, his name was William Shepherd. He looks like you, and he was quite vocal about what was basically happening in Congo as well. And he's respected a lot by a lot of us, but for some reason a lot of people don't hear about him. He went into the deep interiors of Congo where my grandparents grew up, and he was very, very, very well respected. And he was like you, he was anti-oppression, and he had some insight to, you know, when they took some of those so-called pygmies,
Right.
to the zoos in St. Louis, and they took another one to the Bronx Zoo. Basically, William Shepherd was all part of that, seeing what was happening in Congo, and he was actually vocal. So if it wasn't for people like William Shepherd basically raising a voice against what's going on, some information may have not, you know, reached the surface. So I just wanted to add that into what you was basically speaking about in terms of, you know, being righteous and having a connection and stuff of that nature.
Absolutely. And then, you know, of course, and then there's always the faction that another thing that I'm understanding is the same way that they colonized the lands here is the same way that they in more recent times and are still actively doing right now. Like, I don't think people understand that you guys had a civil war in the 1990s. That's a lifetime that all of us can speak about, right? Even though I was born in the 70s, I was an adult when it happened, but there are people that are born during this time, and this is something that happened during your lifetime. This isn't something that happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago, but the model is still the same. It's still the same banana in the tailpipe that they've been able to insert. They just get more creative because of the technology and the way that they reach us, but they're always using people that favor us to come and do these types of damages. So this is why we all genetically have trust issues with each other. It's in our DNA too. I'm pretty sure it is. We've been afraid of dealing with each other for hundreds of years because of the the interruption from the other side that doesn't want people to connect and can be able to compete in a global competition and practice racism like everybody else in the world who's successful does, minus the killing, sans the corruption and those things. But there's nothing wrong with you having pride in the people that you descend from and all you guys sticking together for the better cause of what is going to move your family forward and keep your family's name alive in continuity and perpetuity. That's it. The end. Rockefeller, long dead, still going on. Grandkids that he'll never even meet. He's been dead decades, and guess what? He's still got 7 generations ahead that are never going to have to eat hot dogs and boiled water if they don't fucking want to. Right? These are the same things that these families are doing, these kingdoms in Africa. When I show that map, it was so many reasons why I showed that map, because there are people that attach to these kingdoms and they were kidnapped and they were taken. So the 12 million that they're talking about is actually within the confines of the continent, and they stash people around and bring them other places, and they're colonizing the people that they're getting around to. Libya didn't just start with slavery. This is something that they've been feeling very comfortable doing in this area for a very long time. Maybe it may have been suppressed during the time that Gaddafi was there, or maybe he just was doing a better job of keeping a secret. That remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is that's still an active situation that is helping us be able to understand and backtrack what happened during our times, because there's nothing new under the sun. And they're not that creative to where they can reinvent the wheel, so to speak. But what they can do is just find better ways to do the same old thing. So if we don't know what the history is, how we apply to it, what has happened to our bloodlines during these questionable times, we're not going to have the story straight. They're going to keep walking all over us. Everybody gets to walk away with our shit. And that's just the end of that. Grandma and grandpa die out. Nobody remembers their name. 2 generations from now, nobody wants to get together. Nobody wants to make their traditional dish or do whatever it is in their family that's unique and special to them. Nobody does that. Nobody wants to do it anymore. But we all want to sing Kumbaya with strangers all around the world, but we're not even nice to our own bloodlines and kin.
What I want to build, and I want to build on that to support that as well. As obviously use Americans in your panel in your community, you need to understand, obviously, use historically aspire the world, especially for people that look like yourselves as well. And in addition to that, the oppressors, and some of them that look like yous as well, or look like us, they're basically going to also try to capitalize on that. So they're going to do everything they can to basically suppress that. And you don't want to be in a situation like, for example, in Congo, you have a situation where people that don't even know the groups that they belong to, people don't know. You had a great show yesterday. I think you made a good point about people speaking French. Let me tell you something that some of these Pan-Africans won't tell you. Even the language Lingala, basically Lingala is a so-called African language. Even that's a hybrid language that was actually created by the oppressors to basically spread it throughout the country.
Right.
So when they do that, they also applied blanket terms like Bantu. So when you learn,
Mongo, can I build on that right quick?
Yeah, sure.
What do you know about haplogroup A?
Haplogroup A,
and
from
Albert Perry, they try.
Yeah, A00. Yeah, from my understanding, it was attributed to Albert Perry and the Cameroonian Mbo people. There's a group in Cameroon, and what I find funny is that after they assigned Albert Perry that haplogroup, there was little information or a steady influx, not even an influx. There was like almost like a decline on information concerning A00. There could be various
in
ideas.
Latin America, he shares it with like a tribe, isolated tribe named Melanin, and they suppress that information and also the Australoid information with the Luzia skull.
Right.
And what you were saying with the Congolese language, isn't that basically Sanskrit, a lingua franca with Tamil and all? types of languages from the Asian region? Because I hear a lot of like griots saying things like they come from Asian countries like India or Persia and Yemen.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that. So yeah, so the next time, if a Pan-Africanist wants to tell you, like, you don't have a language, you don't have a culture, you can explain to them. Number one, because there's three national. I'm going to just, I'm going to be clever. There's one or two main national languages in Congo. There's Lingala and there's Swahili. What's happened is that Lingala was basically created for the Force Publique, the invading army, which a lot of people was not Congolese in the first place. They created that language for them to speak. And when that army was in Congo, they wasn't allowed to speak their West African languages. Otherwise, it will blow their cover that they are not Congolese. Otherwise, if we hear all these, where's all these West African languages coming from? So they spoke Lingala. So a man named Malcolm Guthrie, he was involved in the construction of the language Lingala. What Lingala is extracted languages from real Congolese phrases, words, and statements, but also they made it communal so it can interlink with other nations outside of Congo, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's so that it's easier to understand Lingala, but the raw roots of Lingala actually comes from people you probably never heard of. They've probably been wiped out now, which I'm telling the truth. They've probably been wiped out now. But cut along, and then with the Swahili basically Swahili basically means toast in Arabic. Basically, Swahili has mixtures of Arabic words and so-called Bantu words in the east side of Africa, and it was basically promoted. It was by the Europeans to basically implant it all the way into the interiors of Congo. Now, some people think Swahili is a tribe. Swahili is not even a tribe; it's a language. But the reason why people think it's a tribe now is because what's been promoted. And the reason why it's important to promote that is to basically distort the identity, the real people that basically lived in these interior Congo areas in the east. And I don't want to go off point. I want to still relate it to your point to basically say we have a situation in Congo where people are referring to themselves as a Swahili, or they're referring to themselves as a Bangala. Bangala and Swahili is not a tribe, but they've drummed it in our heads so much, and obviously with the oppression, to the point where people think that it's their tribe. They think that they are a Swahili or they are a Bangala, when those tribes do not exist. It's an artificial ethnic group. So
Bangala sound like Bengali.
Hold on. Real quick. Let me jump in real quick.
That is earth-shattering right there. That's amazing right there. What you're saying. Go ahead, G.
All right, hold on. I'm sorry, I'm in the car and I just gotta hit real quick. So I just want to jump in and jump out, and I'm gonna listen to the rest to his answer. All right. So Emil, you know what I mean? Like, it's good to talk to you. You know what I mean? You know, we talk different times. It wasn't always on good terms, but you know, we also got a lot of respect for each other at the end of the day, because you know, you was man enough to apologize for something that happened, and you know what I mean? I was man enough to accept your apology, and I saw that you grew, you know what I'm saying, as a person. So later on, so I just gotta give you respect for that. But the thing I was going to talk about, because you brought it up a little bit, is I don't know if you remember, I had a post that I had posted, and you was on it discussing, you were discussing the fact that, I was talking about the fact that Angola originally was a prison colony from Brazil, that they were sending prisoners from Brazil, captives, Indian captives, and things like that. And at the time, using a different perspective, I remember you kind of argued me down. You know, we got into it, but based off of what you're saying now, how would you answer? How would you respond to that post now? You know what I'm saying? So I ain't gonna front. I'm gonna check off now because I'm driving. I ain't gonna front. I need gas and everything, but I have to tap in and ask my question. All right. So much respect to both of y'all, and I'm gonna be listening to the answer.
All right.
Yeah, and peace, Damon. Much respect to you as well, and I want to also basically give you kudos for bringing that up, and also I need to give kudos to Tasha XI, because it was actually as well Tasha, I think in 2017 she also produced that information to me, which I looked into it deep, but it was hard for me to consume because I was in pro Africa I was in pro Africa land at that time. And yes, with that understanding that there was a prison in Angola and there was lots of different nations going to Angola, and there was different ethnic groups obviously going to Angola and being in prison then, and not to forget what comes with prisons as well, there's workers for that prisons as well, so you can have all different groups. And to support Damon's point as well, is that what they've been doing as well with DNA, what they've basically found is they've basically found a DNA sample with a person that is not ethnically like a Congolese person in the Kingdom of Congo area, but they was found in the Kingdom of Congo area. So that supports Damon's and Tasha Xi's point that there was obviously a prison facility of some sort built in Angola where people that wasn't from Angola basically ended up in Angola. So it makes more sense now in regards to, you know, if there's an exchange of genetics or exchange of culture or an exchange of crops as well in those times as well. So that basically supports that point that Damon made. So
Okay. What you said about Bengal, isn't that like Bengali? And also
Bengali,
the word Bantu, isn't that like Bantu, like an East Indian word? So it's basically you got a white dude named Wilhelm Bleek calling you East Indian, right?
Right, so it's two things, okay. So with Lingala, okay, that is that's basically it's a hybrid language as well. But the abbreviation of it to refer to the area or the group of people speaking that is Bangala. So it's only because there's an added prefix, which is why it sounds like Bengali. In Central Africa, ba is a prefix that you put on front of words. So if instead of saying Lingala, you say Bangala, if that makes sense, and you just cut off the L and the I, which sounds similar.
When
However,
when I come at you with you know, the tribe like Cameroon, the Genga, or the Bai language, are you familiar with that?
which language? Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
Are you familiar with the tribe Kumba or Magenga? Are those like derivatives of East Indian languages like Magenga or Kumbai?
Yeah, I'm finding it difficult to hear you. I think there's a bit of background noise where you are. So
I'm sorry, I'm on the I'm
no
traveling
problem.
to the coffee
Yeah,
shop.
I can hear you.
What I was saying was, are you familiar with tribes in like Cameroon called the Benga, the my Benga or the Kumba and the Bai people? Are you familiar with them? Are
Did you
those
say?
names derivatives of like Sanskrit, like my Gengai or Kumbai or Sevalabai? Because I saw a video on YouTube breaking down like the Cameroonian speaking Tamil. So it's an African language, basically lingua franca of Tamil or something like that, Sanskrit.
I'll have to look at. I probably won't be qualified to give an exact answer on that. I'll have to look into that more. Which is interesting. All I can say is there was a region there was a region in the Nigerian highlands that was occupied by the so-called House of Fulani groups, and before the rivers was called Benue River, they had like almost Arabic sounding names that belonged to places in or Asian sounding names that you can find in places like Bangladesh and places like that. So these people that you should travel across the Sahel, they had an influence on some of the languages in the Cameroon Highland region. So it may be associated with that, but I can't give a definitive answer or response to that because I'll have to look more into that. However, your curiosity still holds weight, because at least we can say with people, the so-called Bantu people in places like Kenya, Tanzania, the Swahili language that is promoted is basically mixed with Arabic, and it basically developed from people that used to come from Oman, Turkey, India, Pakistan, and then they mixed it in with some indigenous languages, and it formed Swahili. And the sad thing is, this is all connected to Phoenix Moon's show. The sad thing is not long ago, I think even for Kwanzaa, the Pan-Africans, they want to enforce the Swahili language on yourselves. And the Swahili,
Yeah, Milana Karenga.
And Phoenix, I think the voice is on mute. Sorry, there's someone.
My godmother told me that they would, she went to Catholic school. She didn't even go to regular school. And this is in the late 60s, early 70s. And she said one Saturday, it was mandatory for the rest of my academic career in that school that we learned Swahili. She said, Martin Luther King died, and all I know is we started speaking Swahili. And I was like, what? She said, we had to go to school on Saturdays. And I'm like, why? She said, so we can learn Swahili. I said, for what? She was like, I don't know. It was something that every school at that time.
Yeah, they did that shit to me when I was growing up.
Like, so that's something that I need to look into. But this is where they were also trying to get people to practice these languages. That's part. They have to influence others to attach to those ideologies, whether they're foreign or not, right? And even if it's ours, they will have us think that it's foreign, which shows how ridiculous that is. Well, even when it's ours, we'll give it away as if it belongs to somebody else. And they use other people to influence each other to take away our shit.
100%. So,
and then incorporate what they want to incorporate, and then that's what it is. And it's only that way, not by law, not because that's how it really is, but by a fact that this is what they were doing. This is the difference between de jure and de facto. And they've been practicing it in every place where they have turned each one of these states into corporations. They're all companies. Presidents of every company. There's 54 nations on the continent of what they call Africa. That's 54 businesses. Who's in charge of that? Walmart. Kenya's a Walmart. Tanzania is a damn Target. Minnesota is a fucking Taco Bell. This is all it is. Commercial activity. And the ones that don't get involved get bombed. Those are the only ones. They're not beefing. They're not bombing any goddamn body. They're not assimilating. They're not trying to change their language. They're not trying to change their religion. They're not trying to give up their land. They're not trying to give up their resources. They're not trying to intermix with everybody. They're not trying to hurt anybody. They don't want to be hurt. And they end up getting killed. Now they have to scatter and come and seek refugee in other places, other countries. Just because we see a lot of people here doesn't mean they're not settling in other countries that they're not indigenous or native to. Hence the reason why a whole Hindu tribe is the 44th tribe of Kenya. They're doing it right now. That's not fair. They're doing the same shit everywhere. They're not the natural people, and the natural people are what? They're not the protected people like they should be. They don't have all the rights that those other people have. What's up with that?
Exactly. Very good point. Very, very good point. I'm surprised that they try to make they try to make her learn Swahili, because that is not even it's not like an indigenous, not even an indigenous language. So even if you were to go by the conflated story of where your ethnicity is, they're even giving you I call it, it's called trade languages. That's what it basically is. Swahili is the trade language. Trade is business. Like you said, it's relating to what you're saying. Business language, it's all about business. Lingala, trade language. There's I want to link this in with everything. So in regards to what the brother I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is it Tony or Tyrone? Pardon me. Sorry, Tyrone. Pardon me. Yeah. There was a language in Cameroon called Ewondo, Ewonda. That's a trade language, and that's a language that got developed because the Queen, the Victoria at the time, and I think somebody else. They basically got a group of people from the Calabar regions in Nigeria and Cameroon, and basically made them the hosts for those coastline areas. So they control the coastline areas, and basically what comes with that, the coastline areas, the trade language, Ewanda, which basically developed. And this is the same mathematics employed back before in the east coast of Africa that developed Swahili. So I'm just basically saying to link it all together with what we're basically saying with, with businesses and the countries being a business. Like, for example, DRC Congo, the flag, and I've grown to learn the flag and the concept of it doesn't represent me. It actually represent the death of my people. Obviously, is to get to the point of explaining to people that it's a corporation will be a bit difficult. So just for mutual understanding, I won't go into it. But anyway, why am I saying this? I'm just saying this is for you to understand that when there's Pan-Africans basically saying to you, you don't have a culture, you don't have a language. There's people in Congo that don't even know where their grandparents grew up. They don't know. Let me give you a very good point. We have, you probably have it too. We have these concepts in our culture that you have to basically live by where your ancestors are buried. It's very important. And by ignoring that, it's almost like you're breaking a universal law to a degree. So you are abiding by your natural instincts by staying rooted to what you've had developed and built in America, and it's good that you are basically self-identifying and finding out that it's, ethnic distortion is real. What I'm calling it ethnic distortion. It is a reality, and it's important you understand that you do have a lot that you have created and built for yourselves. And in places like Africa, there's people that do not know that they are speaking a hybrid language. They don't know their ethnic group. They don't know what happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So in actual fact, you have more culture and more experience of life and history, in other words, than the people and a lot of groups on the continent. So you need to basically remember that. And some of you already know this, but just in case there's somebody new to your community that is from your ethnic group, it's something good for them to basically understand, because in Africa they obviously haven't got it together. So I just thought I'll make
I got a
that
question. My brother Sapa Karu, he posted a video of several African tribes telling us where their actual origins is. Is it true that the people from the Lebo tribe come from India? The people from the Shona Chattanooga come from Persia? Is it true that the Cabo Mandate comes from Saudi Arabia, Yemen? Because they're saying that the out of Africa theory is not true at all. It's basically an out of Asia theory, and that they migrated into Africa.
Yeah.
We say over here, we say that our origins come from like the Brazilian area, from like Latin America, where the Lucia skull found. Mm-hmm. So is it basically an out of Asia, out of America theory?
Yeah. With me, I'm on the understanding that just like different plants, different animals, different birds, different even different insects, they all developed simultaneously. I don't know when, I wasn't there, but nature is basically telling us we all have unique fingerprints. So somewhere along the line, this level of uniqueness, is my word, has to be associated with humans as well. So I don't think there's just one concept where everybody came out of Asia or everybody came out of Africa. I don't believe in the out of Africa theory. There was obviously different populations on different land masses. And in regards to the ethnic groups that you spoke about coming from Yemen or Asia, etc., I don't know too much about them, but there may be elements of truth on the basis that there was travels specifically across the Sahel during Arab conquest, and what came with those travels was adopting of Asian religions or Asian faiths and stuff of that nature. And what sometimes comes with that is, like Phoenix was saying, business. And sometimes what comes with business is sometimes new stories, or if the money's right, you can create a new identity if the money's right. So
So where does Sub-Sahara come from?
obviously with the sub-Saharan, obviously it's initially my understanding is it was obviously created to basically
divide
mock
white and
anyone.
black.
Yeah, and basically, sub,
Right.
a sub, it's so basically to mock anyone that lives below the equator, in it. So and to draw a distinction between the people above who are basically more pale. That's where I basically feel that it came from, and because there was people with pale faces that have been occupying what we call Africa for a long time. But this is where where it's good that what I'm basically saying supports, you know, some of your talking points in your community as well. Because what some people don't speak about is that there's different parts in Africa where some people aren't able to basically live in. So there's different climates in Africa. That's where some people don't basically live in, which basically shows that we are not all the same. For example, when the Europeans sent the people from today's modern day Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Benin, to basic Togo as well, to basically invade Congo, they couldn't basically reside around our forests for too long because our climate was different. They couldn't adapt to our habitat. So that basically shows that genetically we are all unique. We are all different, which is feeding onto what you were saying earlier. And it goes the same way. It goes all the same way into culture. And I'm not going to be able to. There's certain things, you know. There's certain hip hop music. I'm not going to be able to create it like yourselves because hip hop is unique to your genetic group. Because I believe that what comes out of your genetics is culture, you know, experiences, the way you talk, ebonics, all of that stuff. What you eat as well, diets as well. You know, all other things. So I'm just
What do you
basically.
know about Gregor Mendel and Louis Leakey's Mendel's law, where he talk about melanin science? Pan-Africans try to compromise that type of science to entertain the Native Americans because they don't like that information because it says that they're basically not first.
So with the melanin science, with the melanin thing, I don't hold that to too much high. I don't hold that to too much high esteem because there's people in Asia that are darker than me, that probably darker than all of us on the
Sentinelese Anamanjawa?
Pardon, sorry?
Sentinelese Anamanjawa?
Yeah, an example, yeah, the Sentinelese people, and even the Asian people with so-called 2A hair coils that, you know, go down like Caucasians. You can get them that are very, very, very dark as well. So there's no point of holding the melanin thing. If anything, phenotypes in terms of like your facial structure and bone structure holds more weight than melanin, and how you adapt to environments, because the way you are adapting to the heat in Texas or the heat in LA may not be the same how some so-called Native Americans are adapting to the heat. The Native Americans we see today with ethnicity estimates that show a considerable amount of European DNA on their ethnicity estimates. And let's not forget, I'm not contradicting myself, because you need to remember there's certain groups that will make sure that their ethnicity estimates are correct, and there's not going to be, and it's not us in the laboratories, it might be them. So that's the best way I'll put it.
Right, that's right. And still at this point, luckily you can't use DNA for, you know, ancestry, thank goodness. And that is why they knew that it was flawed at its inception, at being added into the legal dictionary, you know, and being a part of forensics, and whatnot. So forensic pathology and things of that nature. Mortuary
They
science.
try to assign that to being Afrocentric, but it's not at all Afrocentric You got their own Native American
Been
peers
one
telling
that
them
way.
that shit ain't Afrocentric. It's the
It's
truth.
just been done that way in order to perpetrate a fraud. And essentially, this is what Emil and I was discussing. And it's perpetrating a fraud that is not potentially dangerous. It is something that oppresses us on different levels. And this is a mutual oppression. This isn't something that is just unique to us, the American Indian. It's also happening to other people in different places. And we don't want that either. Right? Because that still makes everything, it takes away from the uniqueness and the identities of people as they're flip-flopping and just adding people onto different shit that has nothing to do with them. What a letdown that is. You know what I'm saying? That's like such a disappointment. But then again, it specifically says that it's for entertainment purposes only, even though that it does have some, different types of truth to it. And you are able to still scratch the lie. And that is the importance of what Emil is explaining to us in regards to the genealogy. That is, and that's just that's just what it is. Go ahead, Emil.
Perfect example. When you're talking about how they hide the truth. For instance, I study a lot of because I study a lot of Central African DNA. This is why I have a little bit of an advantage over the Pan-Africans, because they thought they were slick, because they forget that obviously I am connected to people on the continent, and I can basically send results for laughter, and I can basically get results from people for laughter and giggles to see what the DNA companies are basically going to lie about. And I've studied the ethnicity estimates of Americans from your community, and there's usually a uniform pattern. I listened to a show one time where the sister Fatou Diarra made very, very good points. There's usually a pattern associated with your genetic code when it comes on these ethnicity estimates. And when I say a pattern, it doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that the results are correct. What I'm basically saying is that there's like a uniformed result to indicate that this is an American person's result. So, for example, they might have a tiny bit of East Asian, they might have the obvious 1% Native American or under 1% Native American, and they'll have a certain amount of European. It's like a similar pattern. And what I've also discovered with that is that there's websites online that can read raw DNA data, and there's unique groups that basically cluster with Americans from your community, which shows that obviously somewhere along the line they have to add the element of truth. And with that element of truth, it's obvious that there are groups in America that have not been sampled, and in order to cover that, they will make ethnicities of their choice overlap what hasn't been sampled. So I'll repeat that. There are ethnicities that they've put on their reference panels created to overlap what hasn't been sampled. So that's where you can basically scratch out the lie as well.
Right. Well, Tyrone,
Hey, Mongo, what do you know about Africans? Why don't they fuck with DNA tests to look for like relatives in America?
Tyrone.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I'm gonna let him answer that question. Oh, go ahead, Emil.
Yeah. No, this is a good question, and it's a fact. It's a fact that continental Africans don't mess with DNA tests at all. And the reason, number one, the reason for that is a lot of them have a perception that they're already. Wait, there's two ways I'll put it. Okay, there's the first stage. They don't even know what DNA testing is. The second stage to that, if they become westernized like me, I'm a westernized continental African. The westernized ones in the initial stages, they have a perception or an idea that they already know their groups, so why do they need to take a DNA test? And the third step to it is that some of them, they don't want to basically find out a reality. So, for example, there's some groups in Africa that have a long history of invading other groups with their oppressing counterparts. They don't want their DNA to be revealed. So they won't take a test. So that's the three different answers if we're speaking about Africa collectively. So that's the three different answers to why some Africans don't like tests. With me, it came from a more my history. It was in my interest to do that. However, what I basically evolved it into is basically helping myself explain away, what is basically happening with geopolitics and DNA, because I believe geopolitics and DNA is interlinked, and as the sister Phoenix said earlier as well, obviously business is a factor. So yeah, but you're not going to find much people like myself that would basically look at DNA to critique it, which supports the fact that the Africans do not really care about DNA testing collectively, and some of them don't know it. So
I get it. Tyrone, thank you for stopping by. I'm gonna finish chopping it up with Emil before he and I take off, because we got some other things to do. Thank you so much for coming through.
Man, I wish
it's good speaking to you, Tara.
Video though.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. I'll talk to you soon, beloved. You take care.
Peace.
So, brother, I want to show a little bit of records and stuff like that. It's not too late. There's something, maybe we should have another conversation. I definitely want to show it with you first. I want to discuss it and show it with you first before we make this presentation to other people, so that you're able to, because it's I don't want to say it's recent, as if I'm minimizing the plight of what happened with the transition, of them not knowing the ancestry and already forgetting something that we've had a chance to keep up with but couldn't. But this is so recent for you guys, with the different civil wars and stuff and conflicts that have happened in the last 30 years, right? Because it's not even a half 50 years old that this stuff has happened. So with that being said, let's see what we can do about the records, because that's what's going to count, especially when it comes down to what land your people own, what places were protected. There's going to be ways that we find out different connections and stuff like that, and different ties. We can find the bag, you scratch the lie, you find the thief, and that's where you get your check from. So, and this is what we have to practice as people that have been done some sort of wrong and some sort of oppressed, and how we liberate and free up our people in a way that, they don't expect us to, because they want people to get down with the get down, just to hurt people and be greedy and, have all these other different intentions, where they're committing this genocide and ethnocide. Taking the language that is ethnocide, distorting the culture, distorting the truth in regards to how you think about yourself, how you think about your people, how your people are presented. It's all defamation of character. It's very much public shame is what they've done in regards to the good qualities and things like that, and just us having access to our tangible bloodline history without having to have these self-discoveries in order to sit back and reflect. Or should I say, till you can't even speak to your elders anymore that were near and dear to you, and you wish there was so much more time that you could have asked these questions regarding who are you, who are they, who are we, right? How do we keep these things going? These are some of our responsibilities. I'll tell people there is a movie called Coco, and everybody should really watch that movie. And they say that it was for kids, but really it was for me. This movie was for me, and it was so spectacular, and it was a whole different perception. I really need you guys to watch that movie. It's called Coco. I don't know if it's Disney or it's Pixar, but he has this perception. His grandmother, his mother, the family was completely depressed because grandpa went somewhere to go off and do music, and he never came back. So the grandmother, the great-grandmother, the grandmother, and the mother were all mad. They can never practice music. They can never have any fun. They just going to stick to doing this. Don't bring grandpa's name up. Don't nobody tear all his faces off the pictures and all sorts of stuff, right? So years of depression going on throughout the family, and the little boy, something happens, and he's able, is Dia de los Muertos, right? The Day of the Dead. And he has a chance to cross over. So the perception, he goes to chase his grandfather, who he thinks is this famous singer that made this song, and he's just absolutely in love, but he with his grandfather's music, but he always has to sneak and play it because everybody bans it in the house, all his family. Make a long story short, that wasn't his grandfather. And if you don't remember your ancestors, your family history dies out. You live in a lie, and you're chasing some entity and deities and ancestors that are not yours. It shows the disconnect in the relationship of communication between the grandparents when they talk about some of the family history and stuff, to where the little boy had it all twisted as he's in discovery of himself. It's an absolutely awesome movie. I suggest people watch it. You can watch it with your children. You can watch it with your elders around. If they can sit through it, it's like the concept was so dope. So was Moana. The concept is absolutely very dope, but definitely check out the movie Coco. And this is what it means to honor your ancestors. You don't have to go too far into it to see what it's about. And it's a really good movie. It was written very well. And it's a message, a universal message. It's not, that was kind of too heavy for kids, but at the same time, there are still some things out there in the media that actually give a positive message. And there's nothing that nobody can take from that. And that is the part that was a contribution to remembering, to prepare, to protect and preserve your posterity. That's a fact. That's a fact. So those are the type of things that we need to be exposing the children to, certainly reminding them of who their ancestors are. If you have children, and don't tell them your their grandmother's name. Tell them about your mother. Tell them about your father and your aunts and your uncles and your mother's cousins and all. You got to tell them about the elders in the family. And that goes for everybody. This is something that just recently happened. And the same thing in South Africa with apartheid. There was a lot going on. And now there are people in South Africa that are still oppressing people. They still stole identities from millions and millions of people. They colored them also. And they didn't collapse until 20, 30 years ago. This didn't happen, while we was over here worried about Rodney King. We was also trying to create energy to make sure that they ended apartheid, right? We didn't even know what we did, but we helped in apartheid. We just turned 18 and were able to vote. We didn't even know what we were doing. We just know people was over there getting fucked up, and we didn't want that. We was mad enough over here to take those types of actions, right? So, and I can say that being a part of that, and I never had a Nubia patch and I never had a dashiki, but this is still something that some of the things that I think in hindsight that we were all built for at that time. And that's the kind of spirit that it raised, even though it tried to wipe our generation out. Definitely tried to wipe our generation out. But now that we're here, we get to have these discussions and we're all talking about remembering our ancestors and being able to stand politically and not worry about being correct, but to be able to have a solid footing in the land that we love and where the people that we love come from. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's what self-governing people do. That's what they're supposed to be doing. But until then, until we do that on a global scale for oppressed people, we're still going to have all these people that's having a party and ain't none of us the fuck invited. All these other people in the world having a whole big party. So that's that. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Mel, before we say goodbye to everybody for now?
Yeah, as I was gonna say, for your community, obviously this shows obviously we've got mutual, we agree with a lot of things, and it's obviously mutually beneficial. And as I'll say to your audience, you don't want to be in a situation where you've got people from my country that don't know their grandmas, that don't know that the language they are speaking is not even their language. And you don't want to be in a situation where you've got, large groups of people basically representing you, because you can't replicate an American from your community, just to be clear. So continue to embrace that and respect grandma, and apart from that, hopefully I'll get to speak to you again soon.
Yes.
And also lastly, one thing good to, because you mentioned South Africa, remember at the moment in DRC Congo, the people that are fighting for that landmass, they're obviously trying to close their borders, because obviously we have a lot of invaders. What group of people's in promoting open borders at the moment? The Pan-Africans, or some heads in Pan-African. So you can put two together, how detrimental these Pan-African ideologies are, and how they can be obviously contrary to your community and your identity. So I just thought I'll leave it as that.
On all levels, that makes complete sense. Well, I appreciate you so much for telling that truth. I can't wait to have you back. we'll stay in touch. We're gonna work on something to figure out something so we can get something right for a change. All right. It starts with us and it ends with us. I love this show. I loved how you came and sat down and kicked it with us and kept it so real. I love your growth and maturity. I wish you the absolute best. Keep well. Keep well until we meet again. Thank you so much. So thank you everybody for coming and sitting through. I think, I don't know. I have to look back on the playback and see. Hopefully my moderators was making sure nobody was disrespectful. I absolutely enjoyed that conversation. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of tumultuous history that we've had in the last 5 years. And like we said, Damon Taylor, he was absolutely a part of that as well. We went through a lot putting this information out. In those days, you know, Safakaru, Johnny, India Mac, it was just a lot of us, and we went through a lot, you know. There was definitely some others, and you know, we were really going through it. They took things a little personal instead of telling the truth. They kind of, and it became what it is, what we know it to be now. So for the people that are coming in, you hopefully now you're coming in at a time where it's going to be a lot easier for you to learn about where your Indian is and your family, right? Because we went through a whole lot. And Emil, Brother Mongo Kongo, he was definitely one of them that did not agree with a lot of the things we said. And this is over the course of 5 years. So, and in the last couple of years, again, seeing how he did the DNA, and it helped him understand how they're morphing this, even to where they change his unchanged, consistent history. Right. So with that being said, he's proving that they are doing this actively to the people now. And we're not, you know, that should be to give us some footing here with our argument so that Pan-Africans can't use it against us as they trying to hold something over our heads, as if our story is bunk and they're telling the truth about Africa, and they are absolutely lying as well. So, and this was a great opportunity for us to do what we do, to be truthful. Everybody doesn't have to agree that I had him on the show, but that's a conversation that needed to have between two people that did not get along, but was willing to tell the truth about each other, right? And at the end of the day, when all the pilgrim and mayonnaise colored people started calling me names and throwing pictures of my grandmother and all up there, all the Pan-African shit that he was doing went out the window. And it became, he was protecting me because he didn't like the shit, right? And then we had the apology things for all the shit that we talked to each other, and we had a mutual respect. So there's, I definitely want to be thankful for everybody for staying tuned in with that. So it was really good to have that conversation from somebody that was been there from the beginning of conflict and seeing how wild it got. You know, down to them making memes of my dead grandmother and my dead family members and all of that, and to be able to be like, hold on, I don't agree, but not like that. Y'all niggas is wild. And if I was around, you know what I'm saying, it'd be a whole different story. Never mind all that. I could put that to the side because this is the truth. And hold up, wait, what she's saying is not a lie, because that applies to us too, and y'all niggas is in the way. So being able to tell the truth, it's going to help us resolve that conflict. And the same thing that we know about how to liberate ourselves is going to be the same way that other people are able to do the same thing. It's not just for us. It's us for us to start, because a lot of things started here, and it's going in here. And this is where we realize what power we have and what influence we have that is going to be able to set the precedent for nobody to be oppressed. Okay. And we're also making that is a strong message to the skin folk oppressors. We see you. We see you. And now you can't get in the middle. You can't get in the middle, because we are having relationships with the people that you are saying that we all supposed to be attached to, but you ain't them. So that means if you an oppressor of mine over here in my country, you using my country to go back and oppress the people over there in that country where you acting like you belong to. Game up. No middleman now. That's how you crush the middleman. Pan-Africa. Funeral song. What's the line? What they call the line in Louisiana? I feel like playing some of that funeral line music that they play in Louisiana when death to the Pan-African, and stuff like that. And you know, everybody feeling good, and they still got the tuba playing outside. And even though ain't nobody crying, and they got their headbands on, and they not mourning, they dancing for joy, right? All of that. All of that. That was a good build. That made me feel good. I hope y'all feel good too. It's a beautiful day in Indian country. Everything is healthy. If you haven't done so, y'all better get ready for Texas. You better get ready for Texas. We're going to talk about that a little later. If not tonight, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have the gang all the way around. All of the Indians going to be in the building. And we're going to have a conversation with everybody and talk a little bit about what's going on and keep everybody abreast of what's happening in Texas. We're also going to start talking about October as well, because right after that, after September, we're going to be busy. We're going right to Virginia. And then after that, we got another special place. And I hope everybody can come. So if you can't make it to either of these places, you better save up your money, because you're going to have to get there. Because it's just going to go and get better and get better and get better and get better. And we'll be everywhere. And hopefully people from other places can spearhead their own No Grandma Killers tour. They can do it in Central America and South America and spread the word. And we need to have these conversations with people so we can see who the skin folk is that ain't motherfucking kinfolk, because those are the people that are in the way and hanging out with the other guys. And everybody is over there partying and shit. And we all sitting here scratching our heads in our own lands trying to figure out what the fuck time it is. And that ain't right. It ain't right, all right? So we're going to take care of this. And it's a mutual understanding. And this is how, you know, everybody gets to be on the even keel. And there's going to be some people that have to benefit from it. There is so much is so far behind that we haven't done, leaving a lot of these jobs up to foreigners to come and take care of us. And they've never taken care of us. Second line. There you go. Thanks, Miss Pam. Second line. I couldn't do it. I was going to say drum line or, yeah, but I second line. Let me not mess that up. But that's a beautiful thing. That was the music that just made me feel good. Depth to the lies of Pan-Africanism and the part that it's played in ruining things here, definitely being in the way of things in Africa. Shame on you. Shame on you. Y'all got to get rid of it. Let it go. You better deal with grandma one way or another. I don't care if she's Russian. I don't care if she's Pakistani. I don't give a damn if she's from Congo. I don't care if she's from Tennessee. You better recognize. That's it, and that's all. Chapisa.